Alrighty, hey there everyone. We are back with some more Minecraft again here today. Last time we managed to build all three mob farms. So we have four mob farms now that are fully up and running. They're all fully roofed off, tinted glassed off, everything. Whole 9 yards. They're all good. We don't gotta worry about them no more. So with that, we now get to decide what we want to do next because there are always more farms to build and more things to do, but there's only so much that can be done in so much time, you know? So, I personally feel like I need more storage space. I think with all the mob drops we've gotten from that, not to mention some of the other bits like iron and bone blocks, which, okay, maybe not bone blocks as much, but the iron especially is the big one. I feel as if we do not have the storage space that we're going to need to be able to handle all of this stuff because we have a seriously freaking massive amount of crap here that we get to work with now. So I think what we're going to go ahead and do is start working on our second floor here finally. Um, I'm intending for this to be more of a storage floor. So like just 10 blocks tall of just massive storage. There's not going to be like a separate sideway or anything. There's going to be a massive cross section of storage that I'm going to hopefully be able to dump a bunch of shit into and just kind of see what happens. So let's maybe take a step back here a sec and think about what we got versus what we need. Um, First of all, need more sugarcane for paper for fireworks because we are starting to run a little low on that. And otherwise, let's just do a quick check on some of the newer modules that we built. You can see we're doing fairly solid on extra bits and bobs. Nothing too overflowing here. It's actually over here where a bunch of shit is overflowing and it's giving us a bit of a hard time by comparison. You can see we definitely have a little bit more than we have bargained for, especially even on the witch drops department. It's kind of nuts. I think it'll be okay for now though, but at some point, yeah, we are definitely going to move everything around. Personally, what I'm feeling for right now is that we need to cut down our trees again, get more wood, and then with the extra wood that we're about to get, we will go ahead and start building out a larger storage room. So, and then when it comes to the circular bits that we have, because we have a lot of flat empty space up there now that we can do a lot with, I personally feel like it would be a lot more enjoyable for me to convert those top bits into farms, which is what I am planning on doing. I don't know how that's going to look for right now, but I do know that's kind of what I'm planning on. So realistically, I'm going to have fully automatic sugarcane, bamboo, and kelp farms. Or not kelp, the sugarcane and bamboo are my two big ones that I feel like I need to farm a lot more, you know? Because those materials I tend to use a lot, like, you know, sugarcane for paper to make firework rockets and the gunpowder, and then bamboo for just having bamboo logs that I can use to craft into planks and in the chest and that kind of generic wood. And then I don't think it's in my best interest to build a... I'm trying to think of how I would do it, but I need to find like the square area. You can't square a circle. It's kind of like one of the whole things in math is that you physically cannot square a circle, but I'm basically going to have to square the circle in this game where inside of a given circle I should be able to draw a square at 4 points, which again, can't do it IRL, not possible, but here where everything's all blocks and you can make something that looks like a circle but it mathematically isn't a circle, it'll work out just fine. So the idea is I have that square in the center of each circle that will be for farming bamboo and sugarcane. On the outer edges, I can have more niche, like smaller farms that can farm either some of my different crops that I had talked about last time, or maybe they could be animal farms or something else I can bone meal with excess or whatever the deal is. So we'll figure out what we want to do with those, but at least for now, this will get me something to kind of start with that I can actually work off of. But that's getting way ahead of myself there, because we're going to need a lot of resources to pull something like that off. And that just takes time, so... Additionally, too, I think I should also move my silverfish spawner farm somewhere else. I feel as if I should probably put it in... I actually don't know where I would want to put it. I know it can't stay where it currently is, past those trees. There's just something about it that's not going to work too well right now with the circles that we're digging out, and like, had I moved it a couple of blocks further out, it could have probably been okay, but I think it's time to move it somewhere else and make some better value out of it. But I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like yet. Or really where I'm going to put that too, because that's kind of its own thing of a mess that I have to lock away somewhere. And it needs to be locked away a little bit better. It needs to physically be out of the way of certain things to ensure that nothing bad ends up happening when I bring in the wither, so... And on paper, I could use a variant that uses a campfire to damage the allays instead of a water-based one, which would, I would assume, allow me to use it in the nether completely. Because if we had a variant that was usable in the nether, then we could have the wither get trapped in the bedrock ceiling of the nether, like once we cleared out a nice enough spot for it. And then ideally we could just funnel a bunch of silverfish into that spot to get their wither roses, or we could just add in an additional step to splash them with oozing potions and then funnel the silverfish into there so they die with the oozing and then the wither gets them. So we may try something like that. What it really boils down to at the end of the day, though, is we need the silverfish module to allow us to generate a bunch of silverfish from allays. We need to be able to drop them into a pit that will prevent entity cramming. And then we need to be able to drip feed them out once they've all been splashed with an oozing potion. We need to drip feed them out in a certain way that will allow me to only just have a couple at a time go down to the wither to die, to explode into slime, to explode those slimes into tiny slimes, and then those tiny slimes into slime balls and wither roses. And then with that, we could actually have an XP farm, slime farm, and wither rose farm. And this time, with it being in the nether, it should be a lot safer to use. So that's the goal anyway. I think it's definitely doable for us to do. It is just going to be quite hard. Especially when it comes to discovering how to safely partition out certain mobs after a certain point. I don't know how I would even go about that, frankly. I don't even know if there is a way for me to go about doing that. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to carve up all these trees and stockpile all of the wood for our chest, and then we're going to pop over into a creative world and see if we can design something like that, because it's actually been overdue for multiple months by this point. I've talked about wanting to do that for quite a while now, but I haven't actually made any steps to doing anything about it, so I think we're finally at that point where it's time for it to happen, you know. It should still be easy to access on the nether side, but just having it contained within the nether is what we're really after, so that way there's no risk to anything, and we can just kind of let it do its thing. So at least that's the idea. Now, you have a harder time brewing potions in the nether, obviously, because you can't, like, make water bottles in the nether unless you specifically put water in a cauldron, and then within that cauldron, you take the water out. So there would be some like basic stockpiling of water bottles and things of that nature that would have to happen. Not to say it would be impossible, but it would just be a little inconvenient for like restocks once in a while, which honestly is a fine trade-off because you'd only would have to restock it every so often with just oozing and infested potions, which for the oozing potions, we have plenty of slime to do, so I'm not worried about that. Now that we have a gunpowder farm, we have the gunpowder to make splash potions. We can pretty reliably get a bunch of bottles really quickly with our villager trader, and we actually have leftover glass for that, so that's fine too. Blaze rods and powder, same deal. That's super easy to get a hold of once, and then basically you never need to restock again. And then, again, gunpowder is fine. Nether wart as well. I've already been farming a lot of it, so I have a lot left over, and it's still super easy to farm there on site if needed. So, we could build a potion setup in the Nether to help restock that farm, assuming I brought in like water bottles and shulker boxes from the overworld. That would be the only other caveat, which, again, easy enough to do. So, we got 40 pale oak saplings just from this little bit of cutting that we've been doing, which this is actually huge because these have historically been a much bigger pain in the ass to get than their dark oak counterpart. So the fact that we've already broke even on what we had to plant is a great sign that we can actually keep these things growing and we don't have to rely on outsourcing from an actual forest, which is really good. So it is important to farm renewably because if you don't farm renewably, it will cause problems later. So just like in real life, like again, like you have no reason, if your whole business or operation is to ride on something that can be farmed renewably, you are an idiot, objectively, if you don't fucking renewably farm it. You just are stupid. You know, if you were trying to make an actual business that will stick around, generate profit, you need to ensure that what you're doing is sustainable because it's good for the environment and it's good for your bottom line. You know? Now, there are cases where it's just cheaper and easier short term to just demolish a whole forest, take all the shit, and you're like, okay, we're done, bye. But it's not only unethical, again, short term, you know. Long term, if you don't have anything left, then there's no point to doing anything. You gotta actually have long term goals and models. You know, you can't do everything short term forever because you will run out of short term at some point. And I hope people in charge figure that out. They won't, but, you know, we'll get there one day, hopefully. Hopefully it won't be too late, but we will get there, I would like to imagine. But either way, for something like this, it's literally just farm up everything, make sure that we get ourselves as many saplings as we can, and see what else we can do. We've also hit a point in this world, too, where some of our last big projects that we have to, not really last, but like we're at a point where there's not really small projects anymore. The mob farm, I would I would personally consider the mob farm to be larger, but it's not really that much larger than all the other stuff I've done before. So like it's not like that's not that big because that's pretty easy to build. Once you build one of them, you just have to do it 3 other times, and like it's more impressive for the quantity, but not necessarily the actual difficulty that goes into it. So anything that we do from now on is not going to follow that pattern, though. Things are going to get a lot tougher because we do have many bigger builds that are going to be larger on larger scales that we're going to have to work through, and I did not remember that I had that scaffolding there. That seems like a bit of an oversight on my part, that maybe I should move the scaffolding around a little bit. Whatever. But yeah, like the mob farms are easy enough to build. Iron farms as well. Like once they're built, and you know, we can decorate them. Honestly, decorating is going to be the trickier part compared to just actually building them. So I'm looking forward to getting that done at least, but that's going to take a while. And we need to hop back up here real quick and take care of the rest of these. There we go. Looks like it's going to be nighttime again. But yeah, we'll try and use as much of the space that we have within the area that we have, just that we were not going to waste anything. but it does just take a good bit of time to plot things like that out, and then we have to custom make all of our farms to fit form factors that aren't particularly traditional. Like the mob farms are fine, like those are a little bit more traditional. I didn't have to really change anything with those at all. It was just a matter of planning like their spacing, but the roofs of them had to be a little different. The thing that we use on top of their roofs is going to have to be super different because, again, we need to take into account the shape of it, and that's kind of its whole thing. And I would like to integrate all that stuff into an actual like storage system at some point. I think that would be really useful to be able to do, but at the same time, it's going to be a lot of piping to handle something like that, and I really don't know how I would want to go about centralizing all that kind of stuff, you know? Like all the items that are there have to centrally flow into one area for whatever filter I have. So whether that item filters for copper golems or for just normal redstone like item filters or whatever the deal is, it has to go into one spot and then be able to split from there. So I'd have to build a storage area first that's compatible with something like that, and then figure out how do I even get everything into a single area. Because, you know, the outputs for the mob farms are down below, but the outputs for the iron farm are up higher. So, like, do I have a separate section just for mob drops near the bottom? And then as you get up higher, do we have some of the other farms that flow from up above? Or do I try and route the output there through, like, a dropper line system or something like that? And then route that into, like, the main central line that goes up and down from, like, the top of the world to the bottom of the world? And then how do I integrate that in a way that doesn't look ugly or stick out either? And again, we may be getting ahead of ourselves. Again, for now, we're just trying to cut down these trees so we can pop into a creative world and do some experimenting with that silverfish design that we have. So again, I'm very confident that there is a way to convert the silverfish into oozing and then convert them into slime, because I have done it before in my other hardcore world that I unfortunately died in. But the extra step of getting those silverfish and slimes to die by the wither in a way that splits them up, because you can only have so many slimes generate in a tiny area, getting that to split up in a nice way so that way they still do it within the duration of the oozing potion, so they drop wither roses and slime, that's a lot tougher to do. And it needs to be toggleable as well for the for every part of it. Not every part of it. So like I need to be able to toggle the silverfish part for just an XP farm for me to use. And then I need to be able to toggle the slime/wither rose part for me to farm slime balls and wither roses. I don't necessarily need to toggle it so I can just kill the slimes with like looting 3 or anything. I just need to be able to have them get murked by the wither, and then I'm pretty much good. So, which again takes time to figure out, and that's what I am planning on doing today. We also would like to try and either keep bedrock breaking to a minimum, or if we do have to break bedrock, make sure that we can consistently do it from good angles to prep the area. Ideally, it's just like the standard 3x3 indent in the ceiling that's surrounded by bedrock on all sides to physically prevent the wither from being able to escape. So that way it's like suffocated in the bedrock, and then we can like implant something into a corner or something like that. So the wither skull should just be able to aim at like bedrock, and then it'll just keep trying to break shit forever, but it won't ever be able to. But yeah, we need a way to stop it from being able to escape. So we'll have to research doing wither cages for that. I think we can use walls to like physically prop it up high enough so it's in the ceiling to suffocate. And I don't remember if they regen faster than suffocation damage. That's another thing we have to consider as well. Because ideally this would just be a one and done. You know, we would spawn one wither, and that's it forever. You know, we could name tag it, do whatever we wanted to it, but otherwise, once it's in, that should just be it permanently. I shouldn't have to respawn a wither every time I wanted to, like, do this. Which, hey, at least it would get me more nether stars, but because I don't have a wither skeleton farm, I have to manually go out and grind for those skulls for right now. So the less grinding I have to do for those, the better. At least until we build a wither skeleton farm, but we're not there yet, so... we should start working on that one day, but I am not going to until probably after I build a gold farm. I think I would like to build a gold farm first before I do a wither skeleton skull farm, because then I also want to do a bartering farm with that to farm those drops as well. And frankly, I need to do a shulker shell farm first before that, because I need a metric shit ton of storage to store everything. Because we are facing an impending storage shortage that I'm going to have to take care of at some point. It's unavoidable. And that's what this wood is going to help with in the short term, but long term it's going to have to be shulker boxes because we will just physically run out of space in certain areas if we don't rely on shulker storage. So I'll have to figure that one out as well, see how we're going to do that. Yeah, so we'll see what we can do. I'm almost curious if there's a way to have like a shulker farm in the nether exclusively. Well, no, because we can't have a snow golem in there to like draw aggro or anything. Could a pillager without a crossbow draw aggro, or like a piglin without a crossbow? Are shulkers like neutral, like where like if you hit them, they're only gonna fight like against a player they're hostile, but against everything else they're neutral, unless you hit them first or they hit them first? Because if they are, then maybe we could, and it would damage them a little bit, so we would maybe have to figure out a different solution that would work, but there's got to be a way to aggro a shulker with something that won't burn up in the end, or in the nether. Maybe not a skeleton because the arrows are probably going to do too much to it, but there's got to be a way to aggro it in such a way that we don't run into any issues, and ideally we could have a shulker farm tied into the wither rose farm somehow, where we could physically have the shulkers not only killed by the wither, but because they were killed by the wither, they would also drop wither roses, and they could also drop shulker shells, which is obviously what we're really after. So I'm not too sure if there is a way to do all that kind of stuff. I'd like to imagine there is, but I don't. And they definitely don't need to be killed by a player to drop their shells as well. That's another thing that's very key to remind. They don't have to be killed by a player to drop their shells. They just need to die. Oh, I could just do entity cramming. Wait, never mind. So I could get them to, well, entity cramming would damage them for the killing part, but not for the actual, like, duplication part, so that's the actual part we would have to struggle on a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything that they'll try to shoot at that wouldn't hurt them back, other than, like, a snow golem, because, again, snow golems are, like, you know, they'll melt in the nether, and I really don't want to rely on designs that, like, are based in the overworld and then the shulker gets teleported to the nether, because nether portal stuff is always super tricky, especially with how dense things are here, that I don't feel very confident in using nether portals for a lot of these farms, except for just a normal nether portal for me to use to, you know, transport. So we'll have to come up with a solution there. But we'll figure something out. It's best not to worry about it. Doing pretty solid on wood yet again. This should be enough to help with some of our storage issues. Won't do everything in one swing, no it won't, but it will help, so Alright, we got all of our trees finally cut down. A little bit extra wood that should hold us over for a while. And we got exactly a stack of pale oak saplings, which is pretty nice. So we can keep growing those at full capacity for basically ever now that we're out of that rut. And we'll just go ahead and plant these two. There we go. Alright. And again, once we plant all of these, we'll go ahead and pop into a creative world real quick to see if we can develop anything. There we go. We'll take this back with us just so we have it. And we'll put the sticks away too. And yeah, that should cover us on that front for right now. We're going to go ahead and pop on over into a creative testing world to see if we can go ahead and bootleg something like this together. May or may not be doable, but we'll see. So first things first, we need to get a nether portal going. Let's go ahead and pop on over to the nether. That was really weird. Oh, we got another fortress here. Cool. We also want to be careful to not mess too heavily with some of the bedrock for right now. Just to be safe. Ah, fuck it, who cares? We can always place it back. Okay, so let's break through to the roof here. So that's our roof layer. So, ideally, we could find a section of bedrock roof that would be something like this. And maybe it doesn't have to be like a perfect one. I just want to avoid having like air holes as much as possible. But I think basically something like this, where we could physically hollow out as much bedrock as needed until eventually we're left with this, like little 3x3 with like a bedrock floor. And we could definitely get the bedrock floor part to work just fine, because you can see we do get some bedrock to generate pretty low down. So if we found like a wither, skull, and sand, there we go. So if we were to do something like this, that's bad. Slash difficulty peaceful. That's dialogue. That'll get rid of the wither at least. You might have also blown a hole out of that, but that's fine. Would we maybe have to enclose the corners a little bit more? Can we actually spawn this in like this? We can't spawn it in like this, can we? Yeah, that's not gonna work. Okay. Could we have it sit on something and then push it with a piston? Or do something like this? Or on peaceful, duh. We're on the hard. Hey, not what I did. There we go. Alright, let's try this part again real quick while we're still here. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? Nope. It did not. Okay, I think additionally it'll spawn where its tail is. Yeah, it'll spawn where its tail is, so that's the key thing we really gotta remember here. I also think it'll break obsidian after enough time too. Yeah, because there's a 3x3 when it's damaged that it'll keep breaking stuff. Let's also maybe turn down the sound a little bit. Turn down block noises. So unless we had bedrock on two sides too, which we couldn't do because then otherwise it wouldn't be able to spawn it, then that would be kind of tough. And if we did slash tick rate 1000, over time you can see it is dying. We're really gonna have to turn this down pretty massively. Even at 10% it's still pretty loud. So it does die over time when it's suffocating. So you don't even have to touch it, but it will die. That's tough then. Okay, well, could we maybe have... Oh, it's a single block wide too, isn't it? It's like a weirdo like that. Could we maybe just have it in something like this? Where we could lock it off somehow? So for something like that, I think it'll still try to chase me, but like if I were to go in survival there... Oh, it definitely got out. Okay, so that definitely gets it out. Let's go on a spectator real quick to see where the damage was. Unless it got up onto the roof. That's really weird. Let's set the tick rate back to 20. Just so that way we've got that going. And yeah, I think it definitely like physically got out, if I had to guess. So we would have to have some kind of chamber to keep it in, which could prove to be really freaking hard because it's kind of the whole thing with this. And again, it can suffocate in the ceiling, but that's not going to do us a lot of favors. So if I get a wall... And again, I really don't want to get down to a point where I have to like build like elaborate wither cages. I'm gonna guess I'm gonna have to do that anyway, so that's a bit of a lame thing, but it is what it is at that point for something like that, you know. Slash difficulty hard. It was already on hard. And again, you couldn't do something like that in vanilla. Not to mention its head is still stuck like in the roof. And if you did that, then it would be able to get out. So what if you did like a slab on the roof or something? Maybe if you did like an end-stone slab, something with like high durability, it could help. Well, no, because you'll still have run into the same issue where it'll like explode when it spawns in, so it won't do nothing. Like that's just gonna blow up the slab because it's physically like locked into the slab. So maybe we could do something like that. And it can't physically leave from here, can it? I don't think it can. Like, it'll try and shoot, but it won't be able to leave. If I go into survival. Okay, well, it can shoot at me if I'm, like, down with it. But otherwise, it's tough shit for it. And I'm just gonna line the edge here with obsidian because I can, so... I'm just withered is all. And I don't think it's gonna explode or nothing. So just out of curiosity, if I'm here, can I make eye contact with it for it to try and shoot? Looks like I could try to, but it didn't necessarily want to lock on. The reason I'm asking because we do have to have a spot where it's physically going to want to shoot things at. And the spot in question, I feel, needs to be here. Okay, so that one shot a blue skull that time. That's not nice. And blue skulls are gonna be really freaking tough to deal with, too. Okay, I mean, again, this would keep it contained by the looks of it. Well, okay, it would help to keep it contained. I don't know if it'll ever have a chance to, like, break the block that's above it. That's my worry, too. So, like, if I did / tick rate 1,000 again, could it eventually break its way out of the block that it's stuck under? How did I set that to sprint? Come on. Dude, my keyboard is, like, double typing, so I'm trying to type too fast. I need to get a new keyboard. Not really need to, but I guess I would like to at some point. And I guess maybe it's improbable that it would break that block, but not, like, impossible. So, who knows? I mean, let's say the block was netherrack. This would definitely have exploded by now if, like, it could have. On paper, yeah, you could have, like, 4 spots where shit could just kind of fall through and then die. Or maybe it would literally... Okay, nope, it could at some point. Alright, hang on. So that's good to know. But yes, at some point it can eventually just break itself out, which means that we would have to trim the bedrock around it in a more specific fashion. So on each of the cardinal directions, we would have to break enough bedrock until it was like this. That way the roof is definitely bedrock, and then if we went down 1 extra block to like here, and then we put it in, maybe this would still be better. And again, I know, like, I know obsidian doesn't stop it, but just for my own sake of having, like, even bits to work with here so I get a better idea of what's going on, I'm still gonna just set it up like this. So we're gonna basically have something like this where we'll have like an even netherrack wall that will contain everything. And I'm using netherrack to kind of make a point here that like it's not going to be able to get out, hopefully, and like fuck everything up. And if it does, then netherrack will be super apparent that it was the Wither doing it versus like Obsidian, where it could have just been a fluke. Like, so we could always reinforce these a little bit harder if we really needed to, but I don't think that's the way to go. There's not really a lot to reinforce it with, so yeah. So yeah, we'll just do something fairly small like this. Here we go. So we would basically have this kind of setup where it's bedrock on all the sides, then another layer of bedrock, and then the roof bedrock up here for the top layer. So we would have to find a portion that physically touched the roof, but once we did, we could, with the tail on a wall, spawn in a wither like that, which clips it into the bedrock up above, and then that is another issue, apparently. How would I fix that one? Do I have anything with enough blast resistance that I physically would have access to that would stop that from happening? I don't think I do. Yeah, but even if I had like an end stone brick wall, which I think is still like the same durability as stone, so it hardly even matters, but there's gotta be something I can do to keep it from being a dickhead. Or at least for long enough to get past the initial explosion. Oh, and even then, this is too low anyways. I'll have to go up to here. How do I spawn something like this in? Well, let's think about this. If we know it's based on where the tail is, and I guess we would literally just have to have a separated section of obsidian that could be used to provide an opening to spawn it in. Looks something like this. There we go, that's what we wanted. And then we would just have to see if we could do this on a wall. That time it did, because now it's physically clipped into the ceiling. But as we had discussed before, this is going to kill it over enough time. It'll take time for sure, but it will still eventually get it, and yeah. Fortunately, it suffocates at bedrock, which I don't have particularly great solution for. Unless somehow... Okay, bedrock there, and then the thing? But if I did that, where like it still spawned, but like it was inside of it a little differently, that even a viable way to fucking trap a wither, frankly? How would you even go about that? We basically want it in a way where it can breathe, but it can't escape otherwise. So you would have to have a bedrock block with 2 air blocks. Oh, that would be tough to do. But not impossible, but tough. So you would have to have something like this. Where basically... Okay, yeah, I think we could do that. You'd have to have it like this, where basically you have a spot where you would be able to put the tail on a wall, and then it would spawn on the wall, and then otherwise it physically cannot move from the spot because its top part is locked in from the other bedrock. but it can't suffocate to death either. So there's physically no way for this thing to escape unless it breaks the bottom block that it sits on, which could happen, but it seems unlikely. Like, really unlikely. We could still do it, though. This is still a vanilla possible configuration. As incredibly jank as it would be, it's not impossible. And then additionally, too, we would only need this, because we don't actually need, like, the ring like this with the bedrock. We would literally just need, like, space, so... But we wouldn't have to bank on getting a good bedrock pattern. In particular, we would basically just need it in a way that... And again, we don't have obsidian here or nothing. It won't break anything too hard. I guess my only other, wants would be... The only other thing I would personally want, just for peace of mind, is I would want to get like a 9 by 9, a 3 by 3 of bedrock like this, then an air gap, and then the main bit, and then the roof is separate. So there's 4 layers to that. Because with something like this, then there is physically no way for it to break its restraint in any way, as far as I'm aware. Or if I had it sit on a block, or if I had it sit on a bedrock block like that, and that would still work just fine too. So hang on, if we break something like that, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and spawn this again. And yeah, this would be a winning configuration. Because there's no way for it to physically escape anything at all. It's got the air block above it to make sure, you know, it doesn't suffocate to death. All the bedrock on the side of it. And then otherwise it can't physically move from here, nor can it break the block that's down below. And then the most you would have to do is just seal it in, basically. So like it'll cause like some amount of destruction around the outside up to a point, but like you have enough bedrock up top that like you can still just trim away all the netherrack and it would be fine, and then you could split certain things. But otherwise, like if I was down below a little bit more, it can't hit me at certain angles. Whoops, God, I was at health there. Health potion. So, yeah, we should probably... Oh yeah, right, that'll piss it off too. Forgot about that. Like, if it tries to shoot me, you can see how the wall will cover most of it. Or some of the skulls can try, but they won't really get too far. So, I mean, we do have a way that we could trap it realistically. Whether or not this is the right way maybe to do this is yet to be seen, but you can see he does try to kill me, but he can't do it, so... So, relatively speaking, this would still be pretty safe to have, because again, there's physically no way for this thing to break out at all. As long as the tail is placed on the block, you could do it from any angle. Now, you can see, though, at some parts, it does manage to, like, tunnel out into a corner, but... Again, this is going to be out of the way of a lot of stuff, so that shouldn't really matter to begin with. So, that should still be fine. I think even if I got right up to it, because I don't think it can really see me that well. Yeah, I'd have to get right up looking at it. It definitely sees me. You can see how it's physically trying to turn to look at me. It's definitely trying to, but I forgot I had strength like a billion. Whoops. I was just gonna punch it just to see, I guess, what it would do for me, but that's fine. Well, we could spawn in another one, it would be okay. But point being, it's not getting out. This is also a completely possible bedrock pattern to create. If we really get down to the heart of the matter, all we really need is just a 3x3 of solid bedrock like that, and then a 3x3 above it, and something like that, and then that's all we would need to find. And then how do we get bedrock that physically generates that low in the world too? That's also another good question we need to ask ourselves. Because if we don't get bedrock that low, then that's kind of where things could maybe be a little bit tougher. Uh-oh. Oh, wait. No, not quite. What is our targeted block? 123. Is there any bedrock that generates at 122? Slash fill. Okay, hang on. Slash replace. Fill. Tilde minus 50. 28. Tilde minus 50. To tilde 50. 120. Tilde 50. Netherrack. Place air. Let's do just 10. Let's just do 10 in each direction. Okay, we need to flip it around. Air. Place. Netherrack. Okay, there we go. That gives us a better idea of the bedrock near us, and I can already tell you just by looking at this. This won't give me enough. Yep, so we're not going to be able to do it like this. We would instead have to have a block there. Could we even do something like that, maybe? Is this even a possible configuration? This might be possible. That's still within the bounds of it. But would it allow it to spawn? Nope. It would not. We could do that. I mean, that would still work out okay enough. Yeah, I mean, we could do something like that where we find like a bottommost bit of bedrock and then flatten out. Like, okay, in the terms of a 3x3, we find a bottommost center point. We remove all the bedrock in that layer. We remove in a checkerboard pattern that bedrock, which, now that I think about it, how in the actual fuck could we build a machine to hollow out 2 bits of bedrock like that. How the hell do we even do that? We could maybe have portions that we could reach into from like the side, but like we can't do it on like all sides. Like this, like we could do this where we could physically have a spot here to reach into it, and then we could have a spot here to reach into it. But our end goal is just to get like a 2 tall chamber with the air block there, and then have enough bedrock around it to create like that cage that we're looking for, where we could just go ahead and go in and do that. Like, this is physically impossible for it to escape from. No matter what happens, it can't escape from this, because it can't get anything. And we can't break it from above either, because it has to specifically come from below. Because if we break it from above, there's no way to get that bedrock back, which really stinks. So we can do it on paper, but it's gonna be very tough to do, and then you would have to have like a more specialized bedrock breaking method to get rid of these more niche blocks, which I guess it's still doable. Because if it's just a piston method, then we could put a piston there. Or we could put a piston... Fuck, yeah, how would we do it? We would have to see if we could break bedrock from below. That would be the only thing, so... We'd have to break it from the below and side somehow. Yeah, you can break it from multiple sides, so that is at least viable. So we're gonna go off of the assumption that it is doable to break bedrock from the sides. So we could break the 8 surrounding it, if there are any extra, because a lot of if you notice, the very bottom ones tend to be a lot more staggered, so you're not gonna find many patterns that are gonna be like full 3x3s on like the very bottommost layer. You might get some stuff that gets close-ish, like this is 6 out of 9, but to find one that's just a full 3x3 of bedrock for the very bottom layer is extremely unlikely by the looks of it. But you would basically have to find just a single block, like so, chip it out so there's 3 in the cardinal directions, and then the 4th one is missing after you flatten out everything there. So let's see if we could do this with just whatever we find nearby. So we would chip all those away, and then this one is already a no-go because it's 3 in 2 cardinal directions, which actually I guess that doesn't even technically matter. Yeah, because these could be free in all cardinal directions, but that just means that those 3 have to be locked in there. So this is the bare minimum you have to make a cage that surrounds it in all cardinal directions. You'd have to have your block. You would have to have a single block, which we're going to go ahead and carve all of this out. You would have to have just a single block on that layer, and then your air block, and then on all of the other cardinal directions. So this would be a valid setup. Like if I were to physically place a wither here, and I'll get rid of these 2. If I were to place a wither here, this would work on paper, which would be kind of nice. Yep, and that would work. So yeah, this is a valid setup that you could make with minimal bedrock, and this would get you the wither in a containable spot that you could control. Now, why does that matter? Well, Every time the Wither takes damage, I believe it will create an explosion around it. Or it'll shoot. So it'll actively try to shoot, but... And with its regen, that'll be fine. I can't put it on a campfire or anything either because it would break it too, so I would also need to, like, come up with a way to... to be able to consistently damage it. So maybe I could shoot it with like a dispenser filled with arrows from a distance or something like that to goad it into shooting. Or maybe I could have like a chicken or something that could be like out here. Alright, slash effect. Give me night vision. Okay, hang on. Okay, that was clear. And then strength infinite 255. Alright, so we'll go ahead and kill that guy out of there. And we'll do infinite night vision. There we go. So this is again minimally viable setup that we would need. It's just 5 pieces of bedrock, technically 6 because of the roof, but I don't count that because it's super easy to get a hold of. And then you would basically just have to have a spot that they could drop onto that it could safely kill at. And again, we're gonna try and do this like with as minimal bedrock as possible for all the other steps. So we'll go out to a fresh chunk of bedrock and make some stuff at some point, but for now I would rather it be like this. Where again, Wither's here, and it's gonna see stuff that it thinks it can kill, so it's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go kill all this shit. And then it will try its best. Won't be able to do much. So, just out of curiosity, if I spawn in another one, and let's say I were to spawn in a silverfish, that's gonna blow that up. Now, it didn't blow up the obsidian, but like, if I were to spawn in a silverfish, what the fuck? How? You should be clipped into anything. How the hell did he get out? Oh no, is he clipped into the ceiling? Oh, he totally is. Oh. Could I block off the ceiling with an extra block to minimize the chances of it escaping? I can't go any lower than this to have like a double layer of bedrock. It's just not feasible. See if this blows it up. What I don't get is why that's somehow enough for it to like just clip upwards, you know? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. And that knocks it up into a block. And that didn't break the block, luckily, but I don't know if it would be possible for it to after enough time. So we're gonna do slash tick rate. Slash tick rate 1000. And we're just gonna kind of let it run for its own devices. Maybe I can do 10,000. That still seems like that would be okay. Notice how it is still dropping wither roses. In fact, it's actually placing a couple on the ground. I didn't know it could do that. Huh, well. Okay, yeah, I mean... And then it'll still give it time to regen. That's fine. So, okay. So as long as there was a block above it, it would be fine. So we could do that. And it looks like as long as... Could I do something like that? Okay. So now it seems to have been able to get it out. So if we want to do that, then that's not the answer we're looking for. What if we were to put it in a corner? Silverfish attack the wither? The fuck? He didn't even shoot first. They said you can't shoot the wither either. But if I were to put it like right up here, eventually it's gonna die. Yeah, that hit it. Okay, so again, bare minimum configuration. You could do something like that. Additionally to, how do we get the items out as well? That won't do him any good because he can't get line of sight on it. But if I experimented and I put one in here instead, I guess lack of line of sight is gonna stop it. So at some point it would get killed, but like it wouldn't die. Okay, well, let's not think about it like that per se with a silverfish. Let's try like a slime egg. What if we spawn the largest fucking slime possible? Baby slime, boom, dead instantly. What about a medium slime? Okay, we also additionally know that we're only ever going to get medium slimes from doing something like this, but again, I need a way to basically filter out all of the slimes in a smart way. Maybe powdered snow could be good to like force them to slow down a little bit more. What if we did something like that? Let's just try and drop one in there. He would die if he was small. Okay. Can medium slimes even fit within like a single block space? Because if not, then we would have to break a larger 2x2 hole to catch them on, and then have like obsidian or something. And that'll kill him. And I can see that at top half of its hitbox. Oh, and its line of sight too is just above ground, or just below it as well. Damn, this one's tricky to do. I'm really gonna have to come up with something kind of special here to force him to die. Okay, so could I have a system to suffocate the wither where it would want to constantly explode? Maybe that's what I'm missing. So would I have to spawn it on a wall? That's just gonna suffocate it and make it mad. And I mean, yeah, when it's suffocating like that, it could, but how do I give it a break every once in a while for it to quit dying? I also don't want it to be like a sticky piston, like on a wall either, because I feel like that would be a super bad idea. But at the same time, that may also be one of my only viable ways to do it. Okay, let's get some redstone out. Let's experiment a little bit. That's what we're here for, to experiment, right? So, say we had ourselves a sticky piston and it was fully extended. Just like that, right? How much would need to change to ensure that it couldn't just suffocate to death? Like, would we need to have a better way of spawn proofing things, or what's like the criteria we're looking for here, I guess? Same deal, we would go ahead and spawn in a wither. He's in his exact perfect little spot that he needs to be, then what? Okay, so this is again where I would get an egg. And you can see he broke the wall he was on, which we cannot have at all. It is an absolute no-go. And it is still possible for him to break the wall that he stands on. So if it has to be bedrock to ensure that he can't suffocate, how could we force it to suffocate so it's constantly trying to fire and do stuff? Or would we even need to? And again, it could just be a case of like maybe we do need it to just like shoot in a more fixed spot like this. So maybe we could do something like this where it is able to just see straight ahead from itself and shoot at things that are within like a contained area up to a point. So like if I gotta slam it here, if I got like a baby slime in here. Baby slime right there. It's gonna rise up into the air and kill itself trying to shoot that slime. Okay, what if instead I didn't let it do that, and instead it was just a flat roof where it couldn't escape? What then? Oh shit. Nice difficulty, peaceful, and then a hard. Okay. Has to be a roof there. That's as physically low as this goes, so this is all of the space we will ever have to work with. How tall is the wither? Three and a half blocks tall. Cool. That's not good. So no matter what, you will physically never get the bedrock configuration that you're looking for. Because bedrock only spawns between targeted block 123 and 127. Which will just never be enough space for it to exist on without rising up and trying to free itself. So you would just have to settle for like having a more secure thing up above it, but you don't get any other options. Tough. Is it just gonna rise to try and free itself? Or it's gonna rise to try and shoot at something, which it can't. You don't want it to do. So again, maybe when it comes to containing it, if we had a block of obsidian down here, maybe that would do fine, I guess. Fine enough for it to be like, yeah, it's got enough space, and then if we did have slime or something here. If I had little baby ones, I would have to make sure the sides of it were left alone. I mean, like, I wouldn't need that there either. That was more just to show where that could be. So if I had a setup like this, does them dying from the wither effect count the same as them dying from like a skull shooting them? Like, notice how those baby slimes died from the wither effect? The baby slimes die from the wither effect, but they don't drop any roses when they die like that. Which is a bit of a shame, because those would be like the ones I would those are the ones I want the most to just like get shot by the wither and die. Additionally, too, I could also see if I think it was lava and blue ice would make an infinite basalt generator, which would be really useful. How the hell did it work? Uh-oh. Alright, let me look this up real quick. How does that work? Oh, you need soul soil. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay, so if I were to look up for soul soil as well, how can I mix that in? That's not how it would work, is it? Yeah, I think it specifically has to be like soil and then blue ice and then lava. And that makes basalt, which is fucking dumb. It's super bad because then I would have to break bedrock for that versus just having it off to the side, so that's completely unviable for like an infinite ceiling of any kind. Actually, that wouldn't matter because of how this setup is. You're just assuming that I can't break the floor. And yeah, it's only gonna be things that are gonna get shot by the wither. We'll drop a wither rose. But basically, somehow I would have the Allay farm, okay? I would then have a pit where I could splash a bunch of silverfish with an oozing potion and then drip those out. The silverfish would fall, die on impact, which would spawn 2 large or medium slimes. Those would get shot, and those medium slimes that get shot would have the chance of dropping the rose, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, because that large one got shot, it dropped a rose, and that medium definitely got shot. So that would have to be the game plan. And that definitely looks like that would be it. So if I left the tick rate running again for like a really long time, and I just left this running, would the floor being obsidian inevitably cause any problems with the blue skull just very inconveniently lining up? And additionally, too, I could just have this be a 1-block shoot because only a silverfish would be able to go into there, so they really just need to land on one single bedrock block is all they need to land on. So, I mean, we could do it, I think. I think this would just be the setup. The very annoying part would be getting the bedrock to do what I needed to do to have full confidence that I would have everything. And then see, that definitely shot a skull directly down into the obsidian. I could maybe have blue ice and lava and soul soil to replace the extra bit, but maybe that would be my only other option I could do. So that way the floor stays like infinitely generating, but then see, we'll get stuff like that once in a while. And see, it just went ahead and broke the blue ice too. And in fact, that means that it broke the floor altogether. So... oh, well, I guess that wouldn't matter because I would just have a generator out to the side where it couldn't be reached or whatever. And then from that generator, I could then push out enough to do what I need to do, right? Yeah, because then we would just have a piston push it until eventually it ends up there. And then that would keep it covered no matter what. Because it's very, very rare for it to break. I can't stress enough how extraordinarily rare it is for it to break. But if it does, then we could basically just reduce the chances of it breaking as much as humanly possible by having a floor that can infinitely regenerate. Like, we could even have multiple of them, I'm sure, in a line where it's like a 3x3 pad, basically, of blue ice and lava. So I think the blue ice could be anywhere, as long as there's the resulting lava. So like if I had blue ice there, that would work. So I could have a layout like that. To get that across. And again, this would still be fine. This is running at a 10,000 tick rate, and it's only done it like twice, so this is super rare. But basically, yeah, we could have a blue ice generator just have like a 3x3 platform that gets pushed out to infinitely replace the floor. And then there's nothing that it's going to try and target. Apparently it's trying to target this slime through the wall, which is why it was so hell-bent on physically flying upwards. So it knows like any living thing within a certain radius it knows it wants to kill. Now, it won't kill me because I'm here, but that being said, it'll just shoot blue skulls out at random if it has nothing to target. Which we can give it stuff to target, but as long as that floor stays intact, then that's what we really want. Which, again, if it went away even for a second, I'm not actually fully convinced that we could do that, so... maybe if we had one that was, like, 2 layers thick, and we could somehow do that, but... yeah, because it's 3 blocks tall, so it would get out as soon as it physically could, basically. And again, I mean, we could always just have it get sealed off like that, and then that would be the bare minimum. Or maybe make the tube a little bit more enclosed or something. But yeah, there would be... oh, well wait, we don't even need to do this because for the roof part, we could prevent it from escaping because we could just use a generator to just push it over the roof. So we don't even have to worry about that anyways. In fact, we could just have it be on an actual bedrock block and not cause any issues, I think. Right? Is that gonna work? I think that could. Do something like that. And then break that one. Then on paper, as long as we just had enough basalt up at the top from like a generator or whatever, we could keep it self-contained. And then again, like, you know, silverfish that's oozed, falls down here, dies. Once it dies, some slimes would physically explode out of it. And then those slimes that explode out could then just be shot to death. Except no, because now it's gonna try and go up too freaking high. That does give it a route to shoot, I think, but no. Yeah, I can't even see him. So it's gonna raise itself in a bedrock to try and kill these things, no matter what. And again, I would honestly rather have the floor. I would rather have the ceiling be bedrock, so that way I can't get up onto the ceiling. Because again, I can always... Well, no, because once it starts falling, that's it. I don't think I could make a piston system that would be able to replace the block quick enough. Well, why don't we try? Let's get a comparator, that, and a sticky piston. Or no, a regular piston, rather, excuse me. And let's just see if we can even make just like a basic clock that would actually be able to do this fast enough. So what if we had something like that? So that's our ceiling one. And then on paper, we should just need... I think this would be a little bit better because then it'll provide more middle protection. So again, let's just go ahead and get some slime spawn eggs. So only the central head is capable of killing it with this kind of arrangement. Which is a bit of a shame. Additionally, too, I feel like we could abuse the fact that slimes are only able to fall down one block gaps like this when they're like babies. I would also want to be able to free the heads somehow. The side heads. Yeah, that looks like that's working. Okay. And then additionally here, how do I set something up so I don't get murdered if I was the person coming down here? I'm in survival. Can the Wither see me? Not from this angle. But now he can. I also should give myself resistance 1 billion. Okay, no, can't do that apparently. Oh right, this was my spawn technically. That's a little annoying. Oh well. I gave myself fire resistance? That's fucking why. I did not hit that. No, come on. Night vision, infinite. There we go. And then strength. 55. Okay. There we go. Let's pop on through the nether. Wow, incredible. World lagged a little bit there, but that's alright. Okay, so same deal. If it came down to it, I would rather replace the ceiling than I would anything else. But something like this. That'd work. Again, we would go ahead, spawn in the wither. He does his thing. This is effectively pointless too, because we don't need that. Would we maybe have it... We can't have it this low because then it won't spawn, I think. If I'm not mistaken. Unless maybe I could spawn it in, like in this orientation? Nope. So it can't have any blocks under its wingspan. That doesn't mean I can't do something like this, where maybe now I could do that. That would work. Okay. Okay, so again, we want clock here. And then all we would really have to do is just feed it whatever we could get. Have that come into here, right? And then let's get some obsidian as well. And then we could go ahead and make our salt generator. So let's get some lava. And then our ice. There we go. And then our soil. So we would basically just get soil like that. We would go ahead and put that in there like that. Have that there. And then we would have that there. And then our lava would go in there. Then that would cover it. We're too close to it, technically, right? And then what if we got like a repeater, maybe? And then we would do something like that, so no matter how many of these he ends up breaking, we'd still be able to get that going. Alright, and then now he's gonna throw a fit trying to get himself out of here. That got him. So when it's suffocating like this, it panics too, which is the other kind of thing we need to watch out for. And it looks like the heads panic too, because they don't even shoot the right way either. So if the main head is suffocating, you won't be able to get anything done. Alright, well I guess that means at least we could have that safely blocked off, and then we would just be taking a massive risk with the ceiling, just being able to assume that the redstone in it works every single time without fail to keep it fully contained. Which can be a pretty big assumption. That's another thing too, is that sometimes they're going to jump off unless we have a way to ensure that they physically can't. So again, medium slime, it's a large. Medium slime. Here we go. Well, hang on, if we're assuming certain things, then what's to say that we can't do it a little bit of a different way too? Where we could have this big of a hole, and then it were to go there. Would that keep it at bay? Or if I got it so they fell onto like a block of bedrock below. I mean, that could do it. So yeah, you would basically just have like a hole like this, I guess. And then as long as the roof stays infinitely generating, then it shouldn't physically be possible for it to destroy the redstone or anything like that. And then you can see it does kind of go on its little rampage or whatever, but that still is okay. Maybe we could do something like this? And then same deal, we could always have like a back wall that's infinitely regenerating too. He does actively try to shoot for it. It also looks like it does have to be the physical shot itself that kills it. for it to drop the Wither Rose and not like any of the Wither effect. So, if it was left to its own devices from here, could it escape? We did tick, great. 10,000. I guess the only other thing would also be like item collection too. As that could prove to be a little bit trickier. It looks like it also blew up the obsidian that was physically stopping it from breaking out, so... I went a little too crazy with the slime there. Again, I'm not doing damage, I'm doing difficulty. Yeah. Alright. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we could, again, make something that is viable. We would have to punch out a fairly decent size hole in the roof of the nether. Oh, and initial setup. Also, this is 4 blocks. This isn't even like the fucking right amount either. Where the hell is this idiot flying around at? Oh, he's just fucking shit up. Alright. Still okay. I think I just forgot a block. I didn't think about it till I had already put them in. So the roof definitely looks like it worked though. Alright, what if I did a 10 tick rate? Yep, it could get out if it was still physically chasing something. That's the other thing. Oh, we're not doing this today. I think I'm good for now. We're gonna look up a design later and see if we can do it, or maybe we need to change how we're going about this and what kind of questions we're asking here. Because maybe it doesn't need to be in the nether, per se. Maybe it could be tied to the end portal that's down below. Since we do have, well, if it's my silverfish farm, I want it to be close by for me to physically be able to use, but I don't know if I could keep the floor replaced. Yeah, we would have to like really figure something really specific and niche out. There has got to have been somebody that has thought of this, so I will dig for another design and see if I can find it, but long and short of it, we're trying to solve is basically you have a silverfish XP farm. You can then drop the silverfish into a chamber where, after you've made all of them and they are stacked on a vine, so you disable entity cramming on them, you can then splash them with a potion of oozing, let them fall to their death slowly after they've been slashed, and then bit by bit, as they die from fall damage as silverfish, they spawn 2 medium slimes, which the wither kills in order to produce slime balls and wither roses. So you would be able to make an automatic wither rose farm pretty comfortably without having to rely on additional mob spawns if you could do it like that. Could you do it like that? Maybe, but again, there's really a ton of different ways we could slice that it would change everything. So I don't know what I want to go for personally. If I somehow got a hold of like a bedrock item, which I'm not going to be able to do, obviously, technically there are glitches that you can use to get it, but I think those have been patched a while ago, so I'm not sure if that's even still a thing. But we would have to figure out some kind of better solution that could work, or have it be based off of like a suffocation based one or something like that with like the end portal one that we could maybe do. Because we do have a quick way to get to a stronghold with the iceboat roads that we already have. So it's not that we can't get there to go use the XP farm. It's just that I don't want to go to the XP farm to like, I don't want to have to go super far out of my way for it, you know? So I think we could still at least get the slime conversion down, but again, just containing the wither in a good way is really tough. And I guess I wish they would change it so like killing things with the wither effect has a chance for it to drop wither roses, or like a smaller chance for it to drop wither roses. So you would still have better efficiency for the wither killing it. But if you had wither roses, then you know you'd be good. So, and I guess what it really also boils down to is just having the wither target something, and that thing that it targets can't be killed at all. So that's kind of how a lot of wither cages work, is that it forces it to target a specific thing forever that it can't kill, and then the skulls are dealt with by like either unbreakable blocks or cobblestone generators to absorb the impact of like blue skulls. But I don't necessarily want to do it like that. I want to just have something that you could confidently contain it in one spot forever and it could never physically break out because it's got a roof above it and a floor below it that won't give out. And the nether is almost the correct size for that, but it's just not quite the correct size. If it was one block lower for the bedrock, that would do it, but that's not going to happen. So, and the roof isn't reliable either. But we'll worry about that another time. I think we're good for now. So thank you all for watching, and next time we'll probably just go back to doing some more survival. But yeah, bye bye.